Where's Clint? Clint. Everybody talk to Clint right there in the corner. Raise your hand, Clint. Clint is one of our amazing mentors, and he's actually partnered up with this aspiring student entrepreneur already, and they're doing some great stuff. So he'll be somebody that you could talk to and learn a lot more about the program.
What if they want to become an aspiring student entrepreneur? What do they do?
Application is on the iHub website. We have an acronym, just ASE, ACE, Aspiring Student Entrepreneur. Go on there, fill out the application. That will come to me. We'll look at that and get you into the program. Okay, any other questions? Yeah. What's that? You do not have to be a student.
Aren't we all students? Hey, somebody came up to me yesterday and they said, but wait a minute, I'm looking through the application and I'm a sophomore and I'm not any of these things. That's okay. Was that you, Mandy? Yeah. And so, look, just check entrepreneurism. You don't need to. Come in here and fight for one of those companies and let's get going in business. These mentors around here will guide you to the promised land. Just get going. All right?
For sure.
You good?
Yep.
All right. All right. Without further ado, we're going to get to the juice of today. The juice of today is Paul Peters. All right? Before this guy became some rock star, he was a punk. We lived in the same ward together. His brother was my best friend. We called him Petey because their last name is Peters. But Petey and I were best friends, and I'd see this little punk all around. Didn't really think he could ever amount to anything. Look what he's become. Now, you get the mic in a moment, and you get free revenge, Paul. Hey, but tone it down a little, okay? So we grew up in the same ward. When I was the young men leader in that ward, because I moved back in to my parents' ward, and Paul came in and spoke to our young men and young women, and it's like, wow, this guy has lived what we all think only takes place in the movies. He's here to talk about leadership today, but beg him to tell you some stories. Because what a fascinating life he must live. We set this up a couple of weeks ago, and he said, now I'm going to be out of communication. I'm like, okay. He said, I'm headed to Ukraine, and I won't be able to communicate with you. I'm like, what are you doing? He said, I can't tell you. I thought you were retired, man. He was off to Ukraine. Are you his wife? Could I just ask you, how do you live with this guy? I mean, really, you don't know if he's going to come home each time.
It's because I'm so good looking.
It compensates? All right, so those beautiful looks compensate for the dangerous life this guy lives. Give it up for Paul Peters. I don't want to walk this by that. It might squeak and kill everybody. Let's go, brother.
Hey, thanks.
Good to have you.
Okay, I will fully admit this environment is a little different than the environment I've been operating in for the last 30-something years. So, like, yeah, just bear with me as I kind of get used to it, right? It's casual, which is good. Like, yeah. Well, that too. So anyway, just bear with me. But no, Corbin, thanks for the introduction. Good human being, as all of you know. So today we are here to talk about leadership, but we're not just going to talk about any leadership. We're going to talk about authentic leadership. Now, one other note. I have about 15 pages worth of notes so that as I get into my war stories, I don't forget important details, because as an old guy, you have a tendency to forget this stuff because it just kind of becomes routine. All right? So the stuff like, seriously, like, hey, I'm just going to go jump out of a plane. It's like, all right, like, are we doing it in the morning? Are we doing it in the afternoon? Are we doing it at night? Like, okay, like, whatever. It becomes a little routine. So seriously, if I'm saying something and you guys are like, I have no idea what you're talking about, raise your hand and ask me. Okay, raise your hand and ask me, because again, it's a bit routine to me. All right, so before we get into the war stories, let me just kind of read a couple things to you here. So As Corbin mentioned, born and raised here in Utah, I have lived around a little bit in terms of different countries and, with the military service there. Now, keep in mind that the countries that I've lived in generally are not countries that you go take a vacation in, right? So you think of like Afghanistan or Iraq, like it's not ideal living. But that's fine. That's what that has done is it's given me 27 years or more of experience being a Green Beret, right? Like living on the edge, living in the stuff that makes life interesting. And that's why I do it, because it's fun. It's better than sitting behind a desk, right? Okay. So the last assignment that I had was as the Deputy Commanding General out at Fort Bragg for 1st Special Forces Command. So all of the Green Berets, which is about 23,000 troops, I was the Deputy Commanding General there. All right, we had formations in every theater. A theater, so the globe is divided into different theaters of war, theaters. Okay, so we had troops serving in every different theater out there. Now, I personally have served in every major GWAT conflict since it kicked off at one point or another. So a little bit of experience to share with all of you. Now, keep in mind, just like we were talking about earlier, I am a work in progress, just like all of you are a work in progress. Do I have answers? Sure, I've got some answers, but I certainly don't have them all. All right, so keep that in mind as we kind of talk through this. So let's talk a little bit about leadership. So what is leadership? Many folks say that leadership is simply getting somebody to do something that you want them to do. Okay, yeah, that's fine, that's true. But there's a difference between leadership and authentic leadership. Let me flip some slides here just a sec. So there's a difference between leadership and authentic leadership. So the difference is getting somebody to do something for the right reasons, for the right motivations, and in a way that promotes the well-being of the organization and the human being that you're dealing with. All right, that's the separator. What you'll find is that those leaders that lack authenticity are hollow. The organizations that they lead, they generally struggle after the leader departs, and they kind of leave a shell. They erode trust and some other things like that. So you want to be the kind of leader that builds trust, that builds the organization, because in doing that, it creates success all over the place. All right, so let me just read something here for you. So authentic leadership brings the organization together for a collective win that is enduring. Let me repeat that. Authentic leadership brings the organization together for a collective win that is enduring. All right, keep that in mind as we're kind of going through this. Okay, so in my 27-something years of special operations, we operated in an environment that we called VUCA. You can see it there: volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. All right, we were dealing with things like ambiguity, geopolitics, constant change. I mean, all you have to do is go look at some history books, which, let's see, by guessing, most of you were not around when I was in Afghanistan and Iraq and some of that kind of thing. All right, but it was a pretty dynamic environment, and things were changing pretty constantly. And so as a leader, you were forced to be authentic, because those that weren't didn't last long. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but it was just required in order to kind of figure it out. So how does that relate to all of you? Well, organizations that you lead or will lead are going to demand that you are authentic. You're going to have to figure it out so that you can have a successful organization, because whatever we're leading, we don't want it to fail, right? We want it to win, right? We want it to, make money. We want it to, people to be happy. We want it, a good positive thing going on there. Well, if you're an authentic leader, that's going to make the difference. That's going to make all the difference in the world. Okay. Now, not everything is a crisis, right? Authentic leaders handle both the crisis and the routine about the same. Why? Because they lead based off of principles, all right? They handle both the crisis and the routine with clarity and confidence because of how they do business, all right? It just doesn't matter. It's leadership is leadership, right? Leadership is leadership. Okay, now, we're going to talk about some war stories, which is, I'm sure, why you're all here, right? We're going to get into some war stories. All right. Now, one thing I do want you to keep in mind, though, is that generally, the greatest lessons are learned when things don't go according to plan. Okay? All right. Now, let's get into some war stories here. Okay. These are the war stories we're going to go through. We'll get through as many as we have time for. I don't think we're going to get through all of them, all right? Okay, we'll start with an adventurous airborne operation, something simple. Okay, authentic leadership starts from within. So has anyone jumped out of an airplane before? Okay, right? Skydiving, I promise you it's a very different thing than jumping out of an airplane in the military. Okay, have any of you jumped out of an airplane at night? Okay, that's what I thought. All right, and have you jumped out of an airplane at night with combat equipment? All right, okay, again, that's what I thought. All right, now, great experience. It definitely has the attention of all of your faculties, all right? Physical, mental, emotional, it's got your attention, all right? So, let me talk to you about what normal looks like in an airborne operation. And these are pictures of what normal looks like, all right? So it's a little bit like this. You're packed into an aircraft. It's hot and humid. So if you look at this aircraft right here, this is a C-130, all right? That is a C-17, which is significantly larger. Anyway, you're packed into the back of here. You don't really have a lot in terms of windows to see what's going on, and you're facing the middle of the aircraft. You're not facing forward, all right? You're wearing about 60 pounds of combat equipment, which is hanging right there, and you've got that on top of the about 35 pounds worth of parachute and reserve that you're wearing as well. Okay, so a little bit different than skydiving where you've got a 12-pound chute on your back, okay? All right, if you are the jump master, which is the individual that is telling everybody when to jump out of the airplane, then you're typically standing at the back at the tailgate here when the tailgate opens. So you fly around, and then when you get close to the drop zone, they open the tailgate, and then the jump master, you go out and you start spotting on the ground different marks so you can figure out when it's time to release the jumpers, when it's time to jump out. Okay, and so you're looking at a mark that's a 10-minute out mark, and it may be like some certain, farmer's field or something. You might get a 5-minute mark where it's maybe a radio antenna or something. Anyway, you're picking up these markers as you're going along. And then once you get close to about the 1-minute mark, whatever that may be on the ground, you're looking for a light. It's a green and red light, which it's not showing it here. I think it's covered up by the flag right there. But it's a green and red light that the air crew will flip from red to green when they're saying, hey, it's safe to jump out at this point. So once you get the green light as a jump master, you look for your spot on the ground, you see the spot, and you're like, okay, follow me, let's go, and you jump out of the plane. All right, now, when you jump out of the plane, let's see, make sure I've covered it. Okay, when you jump out of the plane, this is what it looks like. You're just stepping off into nothing, right? Okay, and you got to trust that your chute and everything is working. Now, I will say that most jumps are what we call night jumps because everybody's got their eyes closed. All right. So night or day, most people are closing their eyes. You learn to outgrow that stuff. But anyway, once you jump off, then you snap into what they call a good tight body position. And it looks not too dissimilar from this. And the reason that you're in that position is because of aerodynamics, so that you don't flip through the air and twist and other things. So you snap into this good tight body position, and then you feel the opening of the chute, the canopy opens, and you get what they call an opening shock. Okay, it snaps, and you can feel the canopy open. Once you do that, you look up and you check your canopy. The line is check canopy and gain canopy control. You look up, you check your canopy to make sure that it's fully deployed and that it's whole, because you can rip the canopy open on that opening shock. If it's not open, or if it's not full, then you need to pull your reserve. Okay? So once you get past that, then you've got to steer. You've got to steer yourself towards the landing zone. All right? And typically there are some markers and other things, but the trick is steerable chutes have a forward speed, and if you don't steer, you will end up running with the wind. Okay, so if you take the speed of the wind plus the forward speed of the chute, that's the speed that you're hitting the ground, unless you turn into the wind. And then you subtract the two, and it's a nice soft landing. It's like landing on a pillow. Okay, so there is a little bit of skill involved. You kind of got to know what you're doing. Now, all of this said and done, got to get to my second page of notes here. All of this said and done, okay, so you do that, you fly around, all of this said and done, you've got about 20 seconds from the time you jump out of the aircraft to the point at which you have to prepare to land and land. And so this person, that happens to be me right there, those are prepare to land positions. I am actually steering the chute. I've got the toggle down to steer the chute so that I can adjust for the wind. Anyway, but the point is that you prepare to land and then you land, okay? And it happens fairly quickly. Well, there's a point to all of this. Watch, okay? So one day, this was a lot of years ago when I was about your age, all right? I jump out of an airplane, but it's a little different airplane. It's a smaller airplane than this. It's a CASA 212. It's a STOL aircraft, if that means anything to anybody, short takeoff and landing. So the problem is that the tailgate is only about 6 feet tall, all right? And I'm just a little bit over that. And if you put a helmet on top of that, all right, I'm a little more than what you can get out the tailgate, all right? And so as I go out, I have to duck like this. All right, and so I jump out and I duck, and what happens is I end up tilting forward just a little bit, okay? And so when I jump out of that plane and I do my counting and the opening shock occurs, guess where the chute was? The chute was between my legs, okay? I was upside down in the harness. So think of being like this, but completely flipped upside down. Now, if I were to ride that thing in, that would have been a bad day. Now, looking back, I mean, at the time, I wasn't thinking much about it, but looking back, I probably would have broken my neck, right? Would have been a bad day. Not something you want to repeat. So here I am, okay, in this situation, and the question is, what are you going to do when you find yourself upside down? Now, that may be black and red upside down, or it may be upside down in a parachute. What are you going to do? Okay? What are you going to do? Do you take appropriate action and deal with what is within your control, or do you look for others to solve your problems? Do you look for others to solve your problems? Do you recognize the adjustments that you need to make and the things that may be what we call operator error? That means it's your own fault, okay? Do you look at those things and acknowledge those things? So anyway, in this situation, I quickly figured out I was upside down, and I figured out that my leg was twisted around the riser, which is this thing right here. Okay, figured that out. Took me a second to kind of get my leg untwisted. I'm sure adrenaline had a little bit to do with that, all right, getting me untwisted. But once I did, I flipped back the correct way and was able to gain control of my canopy, check it, make sure I'm good. And I think I had, it was pretty quick. I think I had 3, maybe 5 seconds to get myself oriented correctly before I landed. Okay, everything landed or worked out great, right? But what do we learn? What are the leadership lessons that we learn from this stuff, right? Well, 1, be calm and figure things out, right? Be calm and figure things out. You've got to figure out how to land successfully no matter what the situation is, right? Again, leadership starts from within. Are you looking for somebody else to solve your problem, or are you figuring it out? Okay? All right. War story number 1. Let's go to war story number 2. How we doing? Do we have your attention? Okay, let's talk about what we'll call Afghanistan surprise. All right, another close call here. Again, you generally learn the best lessons when things don't go according to plan, right? Okay. Obviously, Afghanistan, this is my team in Afghanistan. Now, keep in mind that the pictures that you see here are not pictures of us on a given operation, right? Because you don't take photos when you're on an operation. You need to be focused on the operation, focused on the mission, not focused on taking pictures, right? So keep that in mind. A lot of the photos that we have are when you're not in the hairy situations. Okay, so having said that, let's see. We had been given a mission to go and place a specific device that I can't talk about, not on this hilltop, but a hilltop very similar to this, all right, in Afghanistan. And this hilltop was surrounded by open fields. The hilltop, it was the largest in this little village area, this was a fairly remote part of Afghanistan. Short hike, not a big deal. We didn't see it as a big deal. The device weighed, I don't know, it was like 20, 25 pounds or something. So one of us, we were going to take turns lugging that thing up. Not a big deal. Okay, so our plan was to go to the local people living next to that hilltop. We'd identified some of the tribal leaders in the area, and we were going to go meet with them, a couple teams, go sit down, meet with them, have some discussion, and then kind of wind things down, leave one team there to continue to discuss things while my team peeled away and we went in and placed this device. So that was the plan. So anyway, things were going according to plan. We meet with the elders, like everything's cool. We're like, hey, you guys keep meeting. We're going to go ahead and peel off. We hop in our Humvees, which happen to be these exact vehicles right here. Everything is blacked out. So that means no interior or exterior lights on anything because we, wanted to keep a low profile. Blacked out, and we drive down the road a little bit and pull off on a clearing next to the open fields that we had identified on the way into the village. And it's like, okay, everything looks like it's going well. We start getting our kit ready to go. We, load up the device. We're checking our NVGs. We're checking communications. We're making sure our weapons and everything are ready to go. So we think we're ready to go. Okay, so once we get our checks, then we're like, okay, let's make this happen. So we start moving across the field. And I don't have a picture of it. Again, it was at night, and you probably wouldn't have been able to see much. And oh, by the way, back then, like digital technology was not, photographs were not quite as great as they are now. All right. Anyway, so we start moving across this field, and we get a call from the other team. So we had communications within the team, and then we had a communications specialist. His job was to monitor other radio nets, one of which was communications to the other team. All right, so it was pretty unusual. Like, I was the team leader. It's pretty unusual for somebody else to call us to give us direction about a mission that we're doing. All right, he gets the call. He says, hey, everybody needs to hold up a minute. Wait, don't do anything. We're like, hey, we get the call on the radio. It's like, what's going on? Like, something's unusual here. So we kind of take a pause, and we're kind of looking around at each other. And then he gets more communications, and he's like, everybody needs to freeze. Okay, and it's like, okay, so everybody freezes, and we're listening, doing the communications thing, and it's like, earpieces, headsets, whatever, and it's like, everybody needs to turn around and go exactly the way they came in. They need to walk that same way out. Don't go any further. Basically, mission's over. And it's like, okay, wait a minute, what's going on? Something unusual is going on. Now, we weren't really in a position to have a big, long discussion about this during the middle of the operation, all right? And so we're like, okay, let's go back. Let's rally at the trucks. We'll figure out what's going on then. Okay. Again, notes, right? So we did that, all right? Now, what did that mean? Well, it meant that the mission was not a success. I mean, it was a failure, right? Like, we had this mission to go do this thing, and it didn't happen, all right? So kind of a bust, all right? Now, when we got back to the truck, the other team were like, hey, what's going on? The other team is like, look, we can't talk to you about it now. We will talk to you when we get back to the patrol base. So we loaded up our kit, loaded everything up, and headed back to the patrol base. So half an hour later, we're at the patrol base, and we bring them in, and it's like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, yeah, so that field you were walking across, that was a minefield. All right, close call, right? That was a minefield. That minefield was in place by the Soviet Union's like decades earlier. Now, that's super unsafe. I don't know if you guys know anything about landmines, but landmines don't get safer over time. Okay, they get more volatile and more unsafe because trigger mechanisms fail and other things like that. So here we are, a pretty close call, right? Like, had we moved in any direction, one way or another, we very easily could have set one of those off. And you can imagine, you've probably seen the movies of what happens when landmines go off. Okay, not a good day. Not a good day. Okay, so what do we learn? What do we learn from this stuff? Well, my question to you is this. How willing are you to listen? When somebody from the outside says something, do you listen? Are you humble enough to listen to somebody that may not have authority over you, or may not be in what we would call your chain of command, or, like whatever it is, but are you still willing to listen? Okay, authentic leaders listen, because you just never know where you're gonna pick some key information up from. And in this case, that key information, it saved our lives, right? I mean, we very easily could have said, no, you guys aren't in charge of this, we're going. Okay, where would that have gotten us? All right? Yeah.
Why didn't you have that intel further earlier, and where did that intel come from?
So that intel came from the tribal engagement. So the other team was talking to them, and it was just one of those things where back then, the maps for those areas in Afghanistan, like, maps really didn't exist. And so unless you had some local elder that had lived there and knew the deal, like, there was just no record of it. And so, you know, it was kind of like back then. I mean, that was like early 2000s. Again, like we were operating. I'll tell another story here in a few minutes, but we were operating in an area where literally there were no maps for the area. Yeah. Well, they told us as soon as they found out, but the trick was like going in and placing this thing, like it was a covert mission. Okay. Well, the tribal leaders were in the village next to the fields. Yeah. Okay, so it was a classified mission. Like we didn't want anybody knowing we were doing this. Okay. All right. Lessons learned, right? All right, let's talk about Rory Del Pyatt. That's RD. Okay, we're in Thailand, all right, doing some training. Let's see, somebody else was talking about somebody doing some training in Thailand. Anyway, we're there for about 5 or 6 weeks. We are doing an Airborne Operations Program of Instruction, POI. We are moving from static line to free fall operations in this POI. All right, starting out easy. The way it works is you gradually, you start out with daytime operations, and then you gradually move into nighttime operations, and then you do daytime combat equipment operations, then you move to nighttime combat equipment operations. So there's kind of a progression that goes on there. We had 3 different parties that were involved. So my team, we broke it up into 3 different elements. We had an element at the drop zone. We had an element in the aircraft, and then we had an element at the departure airfield, which is where I was at. I was at the departure airfield because that's the best place to kind of control what's going on. I could control the aircraft. I could control jumpers getting on the aircraft. I could best manage things. So that's kind of how we were distributed. Now, one thing to keep in mind, when you're doing airborne operations, you want to keep fairly strict accountability of people so that you know that somebody hasn't hit the ground without their parachute opening. Okay, so in the daytime, that's not too hard because you can see like you know how many jumpers are in the aircraft, they jump out, you know how many chutes open, you know if everybody's gonna land okay because they've got a good chute. You can just look up in the sky and count. At nighttime, it gets a little trickier, all right? It's a little harder to figure that out because you know how many people get on the aircraft, you know how many exit the aircraft, but you have to wait until most of the time you don't even see them landing. They have to land, grab their gear, and roll up to the collection point, we call it, to get accountability. So here we are, we're doing some operations. We are, when you do jump at night, it's interesting. Again, you know, like previously, it's really got the attention of all your faculties. But when you do jump at night, like you're just jumping out into the darkness, right? You're just taking a step, and there is enough light in the aircraft, which they do keep dim, but there's enough light in the aircraft that you can't see anything outside the aircraft. So generally, you're just taking a leap of faith. All right. So we're doing this, and we have progressed to the nighttime combat equipment free fall, HALO. And I get a call from the drop zone saying that RD is missing. Okay? Now, all right, let me take that back. I get a call saying someone is missing. It's like, okay, wait a minute. Let's go back. Let's double check accountability. Let's go through this again. Call comes back. We're missing somebody. Okay, now we got to figure out who it is that we're missing. Sure enough, we're doing the checks. We're checking manifests. We're checking the manifests of who got on the aircraft. We're checking who is actually at the collection point, and we find out that RD is missing. Now, this is not This is not a good thing. All right? This is not a good thing. And the reason I say that is because at night, free fall, combat equipment, there are about 52 different things that could have gone wrong. Like when his chute opened, he could have gotten entangled with his combat equipment and he could have burned in. All right? He may not have had a chute open at all. All right? He may have had just a really bad landing and broken something. Bad things. Like really bad things could happen, especially when you're jumping over a jungle in Thailand and you're trying to hit a drop zone that's probably, I don't know, maybe 3 times the size of this space in here is all right? So you got a lot of big trees and other things. He could be hung up in a tree. So it could be a pretty bad day, right? So my question to you as it relates to leadership is, what do you do when you get the call that things have gone really wrong? How do you react? What is your focus? Is your focus on yourself, your career, or is the focus on the concern of the team and the people and the organization? Is your concern about their safety? Is it about or is it about reporting something to somebody else and keeping some external entity happy? Are you organizing the team to take action, or are you focused on other things at the time? All right. So we mobilized a search party, got some local soldiers involved. We started getting some intel resources working some local phone trees to start calling people in the local area to see if they could figure things out. We sit down with the air crew. We start looking at drop radiuses and potential search area radiuses based off of when they believe that they had, when he had jumped out of the aircraft, how far he could have drifted, some things like that. So, we're doing some calculations. It's taking some time. Had to wait for the air crew to get back to the departure airfield so that we could do all this, right? So a little bit of stuff going on. Well, how does this end? Surprisingly, RD comes riding up on a motor scooter that a Thai soldier was driving. All ended well. It's like, okay, great. All right, so what had happened is when he jumped out of the aircraft, as the jump master, as I explained, was looking at the markings, the jump master had identified the markings, told everybody to jump, but when he jumped out, he didn't see the right markings. He found some lights that looked kind of similar, but not the same, and started tracking and flying over towards those other lights. So he ended up about 8 miles away from everybody else. All right, now, other problems, like he's got to figure out a place to land, right? So he figures out a place to land. It just happens to be an open field. We don't know if there are power lines or other obstacles or whatever, but the point is, he pulls off a successful landing. Good for him. Gathers up all his stuff, and he starts walking towards the nearest major road. So he figures out some directions, starts walking towards the nearest paved road. Keep in mind, paved road. And it just so happens that the Thai soldier who was on his way to come join the search party happened to drive by him and recognized what's going on and said, hey, jump on the back of my motor scooter and I'll drive you to where we need to go. Okay, so everything ended well, right? Okay, so what do we learn from this? What do we learn from this? Well, sometimes you miss the mark, right? But sometimes you can miss the mark, but things turn out okay. That's just okay. Now, things that, from my standpoint, one, don't always believe the first report. Go off of facts and ensure people are cared for, and don't worry about your career. Now, the reason I bring that stuff up is because the aftermath of this, the team knew exactly what the leadership was focused on. The leadership was focused on the team, making sure the team, that RD and his well-being was dealt with, and wasn't worried about other things. that built credibility and trust with the team as opposed to being focused on the wrong things. Okay? All right. Is everybody tired yet? Everybody ready to take a nap? Okay. Let's talk. Let's talk about dropping bombs on ISIS in Iraq. All right. Okay, how are we doing on time?
Probably okay for 18 minutes. 22.
Okay, I'll tell this. Okay, I'll tell this really quick, and then we'll tell one other really quick story, and then I'll open it up to questions. All right. Okay, so how many of you have dropped bombs for a career? Yeah, anybody? Okay. All right. Well, I have. It's exciting stuff. Let's talk about the process here. So before you drop bombs, you've got to have a target. And there's a bit of work that goes into identifying and analyzing the target. And I'll just summarize it by saying that once you identify a target, you have to identify it through several different sources, and then you start tracking the target. All right, and you've probably seen the movies, the UAV feeds, the Predator feeds, where you're watching somebody or some vehicle or whatever, and then you turn around and you drop a bomb on that target. Well, that's the tracking the target piece. Now, all of this kind of occurs in what they call a targeting cell. Now, in Iraq, we had a day and a night shift. That was the day shift for the targeting cell, but that is pictures taken central Baghdad on top of Saddam Hussein's bombed out palace. And yes, that is a golden AK that I'm carrying right there if you look closely. Anyway, so that's the targeting cell. That group of people right there, they would sit in a room, I mean, not as fancy as this, but with computer monitors all over the place, big TVs like this all over the place you've got data, everything tracking, all kinds of stuff. You've got multiple UAV feeds going on. You've got communications with the aircraft, directly to the aircraft that are flying around. You've got communications to ground elements and to everything in between, okay? And so you're really kind of controlling what's going on in the targeting process. Now, once you have the target, you've identified it through multiple methods, and you start tracking that target. Then when that target gets under certain parameters, a TIA, Target Engagement Authority, gives the green light to drop the bomb. So I happen to be the TIA in Iraq on this trip. And so we would track targets and then give the thumbs up like, yep, okay, here we go. Call the aircraft, tell them it's time. Bomb drops, right? And then you watch what happens and you deal with it from there. So, Nico, if you can hit the play button, maybe. This is what a drop looks like in the strike cell. You got the UAV feed. I mean, this is, yeah. Okay, that's it. That's what it looks like in the strike cell. That's all you see. It's pretty quiet. It's pretty calm. It's like playing a video game, right? That's what it looks like. All right, now, if it gets really exciting, you might have to follow on. Nico, you can pause that thing if you want, yeah. If it gets really exciting, you're going to have a follow-on attack, all right? So you might have what we call squirters, where it's like you drop a bomb on something and it didn't kill everybody. I hate to say it didn't kill everybody, and people are running away, and so you're going to drop another bomb, okay? So that's kind of it, right? Pretty exciting stuff, yeah? Now, the catch here is, though, that many folks start to take this a bit less seriously. It's not a good thing, right? Like I say, like playing a video game. Remember, people's lives are at stake. People's lives are at stake. And so this is not a game. Now, you're doing some really cool stuff, right? How do you react when the team starts getting off focus? When they start making light of serious matters? Now, how does this relate to you guys? Well, I'm pretty sure that as you guys are leading and running organizations, People's livelihoods are at stake, okay? So when people start getting off track and you need to readjust, how do you deal with that? Do you yell? Do you berate? Do you get all upset with people? Or do you simply coach and mentor? Do you simply bring them back onto target, walk them back onto target, as we say? Now, from a leadership standpoint, attitude matters, right? You have to take serious things seriously. Don't make light of things that impact people's lives, right? When it's time for correction, ensure you're doing it in a way that builds the team. There are ways to do it, and there are ways not to do it, all right? And that's the difference between authentic and inauthentic leadership. Okay. Let's go to, this is a pretty good story, but we'll save that one for later. This one will get your attention. Okay. All right. What do we call it? Oh, the Thai building event. I don't want to give it away. All right. So, training again in Thailand, different trip. This time we're doing close quarters battle, CQB. It's the stuff you see on the movies where you're kicking in doors, like blowing open doors, kicking in doors, assaulting buildings, that kind of thing. At this point, we're working on what we call breaching charges. So breaching charges would be charges, explosives that we use to breach anything from like a door like that, or we may breach right through a wall. Okay, and the point is that you just need an opening for the team to get into. It's got to be big enough that like guys like me can walk right through it with all of our kit and equipment, right? So it's got to be pretty big. Well, we're using various things like C4, if you guys know what that is, det cord, other things like that, other propellants. But when you do these breaching charges, you're pretty close. Like if we were to breach that door right there, I mean, literally we'd be just right around the corner, 5 or 6 feet away. You'd breach that thing and then you'd assault right through the door, right? Anyway, we're working with and teaching the Thais how to do this. And we're progressing from simple breaching charges to more complex. And so we're working our way up to concrete. All right, so blowing a hole in a concrete wall so you can walk through it. Now, the Thais have given us a building, just an abandoned building, and we've blown through all the doors. At that point, the windows are all shattered as well, but we've blown through all the doors, and now we're working on the concrete breaching through a wall. All right? We have done what we would consider a typical charge to breach the concrete, and it had no effect. Didn't even crack the concrete on these walls. And this was an interior wall, mind you, so it should not have been reinforced. Reinforced concrete, different calculation than non-reinforced concrete. And there are calculations to all of this. And so we went and recalculated. There are formulas, math, like it's important. Math is important. Okay, so we had to calculate and recalculate, and we had done this like 3 times, and each time, no effect. And so we said, all right, well, let's increase it a little bit. No effect. Increase it a little bit more. No effect. And it's like, all right, this is unusual. Something's not right. And so the experts, keep in mind, the experts were very perplexed. They just didn't know what was going on. So there's a saying that we have, and that is P for plenty in the calculation. So we went big. We're like, okay, we're going to go big on this one, and we're going to make this work. All right, so we did that. So Nico, do you want to hit that video there? This is not it. This is an Afghanistan explosion, but this will give you a sense of what a real explosion is like. Secondary explosions from other things going on. Okay. All right. Okay, it's usually pretty exciting, pretty fun, right? Like, does that get your attention? Okay, so an explosion about that big goes off. Now, what happened? Well, there was overpressure because of the way the building was structured, and we were doing an interior wall. There was some overpressure that the experts missed and didn't calculate for, and we almost blew up the entire building, almost collapsed the entire building. All right? Now, I happen to be about this far to the back wall away from the building. I am behind a tree that's about that big around, okay? There is a Thai soldier with me. I mean, we're behind the tree for a reason, because you take cover when you do explosions like that. Okay, we're behind the tree, and after this explosion, there's a piece of concrete about this big, okay? About that thick, right? That was stopped by that tree, okay? It almost took the tree down. Like it hit it about this high on the tree, and it almost took it down, okay? There were pieces of concrete like that all over the place, all right? So you could say that, I mean, clearly the tree saved my life. Like, I mean, we were doing what we were supposed to in terms of taking cover and that kind of thing. So, the tree saved my life, but like things didn't go as planned, right? Things went a little crazy. So what's going through your head when you have a close call like that? Let's talk about leadership, right? What's going through your head when you have a close call like that? Are you thinking about yourself like, oh my gosh, I'm okay? Like, oh man, anyway, whatever. Is your focus on yourself, or are you thinking about the safety and well-being of your team, right? It's all about team, right? Are you thinking about your people? So, again, the experts were completely perplexed. They weren't expecting any of this. Now, a little advice. It's important to trust your experts, but as a leader, you need to know the risks. That's why we were behind trees and things, because there was still risk regardless of what the experts had to say. Like I mentioned, experts, they're experts for a reason, but at the same time, experts sometimes miss things, and that's important to understand. So when they do, how do you react? When you're relying on an expert and they miss something, how do you react? How do you handle the team? Do you chastise the so-called experts? Do you get down on them? Or are you focused on the whole of the enterprise and how to deal with that situation? Now, in that situation, I happen to be second in command. And the commander didn't handle this the right way. That evening, he called everybody in. He's like, we're having a meeting. And he berated them and chastised the experts. And where do you think that led? Well, it didn't go well. Okay, he eroded the team cohesion by doing that, and that lasted until he left, which was 6 months later. The team had a hard time coming together as a team because of the way he handled that situation. All right, so as a leader, as an authentic leader, you need to think about the team. Think about how you're handling that stuff and how you're dealing with it. Okay, we'll leave it at that because I know we're out of time. Open it up maybe for some questions. Okay, some other good stories here. All right, so let me leave you with this. Leadership is learned through application and consequence, right? Authentic leaders get the job done while building trust, while building resilience, and building a winning team, right? You may have heard this before, but by their fruits ye shall know them. It applies to leadership as well, all right? It applies to leadership as well. Okay, questions, how much time? I think we've got about 5 minutes for questions. Okay. Put everybody to sleep? Yeah, go ahead. Yes, of course. Trying to get down as low as I could to the ground. I mean, when the explosion goes off, it's too late to see cover because the explosion happens really fast. You're there in that position before. Yeah. Yeah, Nico. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, so absolutely. So I'm a human. Everybody else that I'm leading is human. If I acknowledge that I'm a human and I'm transparent about that, and they know that I think about things that way and act that way, they're going to be a little more open about stuff and a little more receptive to that as well. So you don't have to put on an air of like, oh, I've got all the answers, I know everything, like you just need to do what I tell you to do kind of thing. It's like, hey, no, like, yeah, I'm in charge, but at the same time, like, I'm willing to listen, I'm willing to learn, right? Yeah. Yeah, well, if we've got time, sure. Yeah. Okay, so I think I heard the first and the last question there. Anyway, so why did I enlist? Honestly, I was looking to pay for college. And what happened is I got in and I found success and more doors opened. And I started walking through those doors and found more doors opening and walked through those. All right, now what do I do to help others? Well, I think I try to lead authentically, and I try to inspire them through like a little coaching and mentoring and kind of, working through life kind of stuff, because that's what all of this is about, right? It's kind of working through life and figuring things out. Yeah, go ahead.
Just based on everything you said, I feel like a lot of it comes down to like charity as well. Like, I feel like in your leadership, you need to have charity for the people that you're over, right?
Well, I would maybe redefine that as empathy. I'd say maybe empathy, all right? Because there's a fine line between like, hey, I gotta tell you to do something and I know you're not gonna like doing it, but guess what? I need you to do it. But having the empathy to be able to communicate that the right way and have them be able to receive that and understand that you know that, that's the key, right? That's the key, because as a leader, you're gonna have to ask people to do things that they don't want to do. It's inherent there. Yeah.
With all that you've had to do and this whole authentic leadership stuff, how have you been able to put people first when sometimes, like you said, you're on a covert mission, you're trying to hide things, deceive things, or like I said, I like the empathy, probably answers a lot of this too, but
Yeah.
how did you always make sure you put people first even when you're out to destroy things in a way?
Well, I mean, we've got a saying: people first, mission, or mission first, people always. And it's just I think it's just kind of an underlying way that you do business, where human capital is the number one resource. Human capital is the number one resource. And so if you have the right people, the right team, you've trained them well, you're taking good care of them, then you can expect high, great things from them. And that's kind of it's not, you don't do it in a usury way, but it's like, hey, look, we're part of the team, we're working together, but yeah, I expect you to rise to the occasion, and I believe that you can do it, right? Yeah, go ahead.
I guess kind of a similar question. How do you deal with like the pressure of like trusting that you make like the best decision possible, especially because in your case, I guess you're dealing like the decisions you make obviously affect the lives of those in business. It's not their lives necessarily, but how do you deal kind of with that pressure, like that mental, like, am I making the right decision, best decision right now in this moment?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know, because I'm not sure how to answer that, because it's one of those things that you learn where you just can't get into the business of second guessing. It's like the negative self-talk. You just have to turn it off. You just make the best decision that you can at the time with the information that you've got, and you move forward. Now, does it mean that you can't like revisit? You get new information. it doesn't mean that you can't revisit that decision. There are a lot of decisions that are not like, it's not one or the other. It's not irreversible. I mean, some are, but most aren't, if that makes sense. And so if the team knows that you're listening to them, then they give you the grace and the latitude to have a little buffer room in there as well. Yeah, somebody, yeah, go ahead.
It's kind of almost expanding on that, but I guess to make it a little bit easier to answer, for you personally, how have you kind of struck the balance of being confident enough to make those decisions and being transparent enough, but not to a degree where you're second guessing yourself? Like, how have you done that as a leader personally? Does that make sense?
I think. Well, no, it's fine. I mean, I think what I do a lot of is I have my trusted team, and we have pretty candid discussions within that trusted team of what we're going to do and where we're going to take things. So it's like, hey, look, we're about to make this decision. Now, if you're on the battlefield, if it's like, hey, are we going right or left at this fork, and we're patrolling and, whatever it is, okay, that's maybe a little bit different. But generally speaking, if you have your trusted team and you have, no kidding, candid conversations with them, then that stuff works itself out. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
How do you go about just when you have a team of people, getting them like sold on the mission and sold on you? Like just gaining that trust at the very beginning of get-go?
Well, so for starters, it's not about me. That's how you do it. Like, I'm sell them on me. I'm trying to sell them on the mission. All right, guys, look, whether you like it or not, like, this is important and this is why this is important. Again, if you take yourself, your ego out of that, changes the equation pretty quickly. Yeah.
I'm curious from a leadership standpoint, how do you feel he's doing with the military, and specifically, how do you feel about kinetic action against drug runners on the high seas?
So I am not going to answer that question because that's a political question, and I'm going to stay as apolitical as I can. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. It looks like everybody's got to go. Thanks for coming. Hey, if you need to get a hold of me for whatever reason, there's my info. They'll have it on the recording, but yeah, Mike Alder has some cards as well. Anyway, thanks everybody.